It is actually quite funny to watch everyone lose their minds over a few green candles, while I sit here on my lounge chair barely moving a single muscle in my body. The world is completely obsessed with the idea that every major upward movement in the market is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get rich, when the reality is much simpler and much more boring. Complexity is a status signal for people who want to feel smart but stay poor, and most of you are making this investing game way harder than it ever needs to be. 1 month ago, the market was panicking over the Iran war and broken supply chains, and today it is verging on extreme greed as if all the problems in the world just evaporated overnight. Below all the headlines, big institutions are quietly building cash because they see a massive opportunity ahead that the average retail trader is too blind to notice. My name is Alex, and I spent years as an electrical engineer and AI researcher at MIT, which helped me find stocks like Nvidia and Micron and Vertiv long before the rest of the market woke up. In this video, I am going to show you the major market stories already changing, which stocks are about to win big, and I will show you a huge mistake that I made along the way. Your time is valuable, so let us get right into the reality of the situation without any of the fluff or the fake excitement you see on other channels. The CNN Fear and Greed Index has been stuck near extreme greed for the last 10 weeks, which is the longest stretch so far this year, and it is easy to understand why. During earnings, the biggest tech companies on Earth announced over $10 billion in AI infrastructure spending this year alone, which is up 20% from last year. But here's the signal that made me make this video. Because just last week at the Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting, Warren Buffett said the stock market is in a mood for gambling. He called this investing environment like going to a church with a casino attached, and his firm is currently sitting on almost $13 billion in cash. That is a whopping 70% of their entire portfolio, which is an all-time record for the firm, and they are holding more cash than they did during the global financial crisis. Warren Buffett coined the phrase to be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful, and that is exactly what he is doing right now while you chase the top. The question is not why he is doing it, because the war and broken supply chains and rising costs are obvious to anyone with a pulse and a brain. The real question is where that money goes when he finally buys back in and when other massive institutions follow his lead into the next cycle. Accountability is important to me, so let us talk about my big mistake, because I owe you a real apology regarding the technical side of AI hardware. Traditional AI data centers run roughly 1 CPU for every 8 GPUs, where the GPUs do the heavy math and the CPUs keep the traffic moving. But agentic AI flips the script, because when a coding agent runs for 10 straight, it makes tons of separate tool calls and spawns hundreds of sub-agents. None of that orchestration and context management runs on GPUs, because it all runs on CPUs, which is a massive fundamental shift in how these centers are built. Jensen Huang showed specific numbers at GTC 2022, and Yuan 2010 GPUs running at scale need 99 CPU cores running next to them to function. That sounds like a 10 to E CPU to GPU ratio, which is one reason why I think stocks like AMD and Intel are running so hot right now despite the skeptics. There are T-Shar Rubin GPUs per rack, so Yuan 10 GPUs would need about Yaudio T racks, and each Vera rack has Arwudio CPUs and each CPU has Bashba cores. One rack of Vera CPUs has almost Liaowen Sensen cores, which means for every Yaudio T GPU racks you actually only need Shaba CPU racks, or a ratio of Jo to E GPU to CPU racks. In chip terms, a data center wants 10 by Vera CPUs for every Yuan 10 Rubin GPUs or 1 CPU for every Arduino GPUs, which is much more than I originally anticipated. Investors should care about the racks because data centers are priced in terms of racks, and agentic AI needs 9 times more GPU racks than CPU racks. But I did not think about it in terms of chips, and AI data centers only need 3 times more GPUs than CPUs if you count by chips. Instead of racks, there are roughly 3 times more CPUs in AI data centers than I realized. And that is a big difference that I really should have caught much sooner than I did. I did not cover AMD enough, and I did not cover Intel enough, and I did not listen to your feedback in the comments. And for that, I sincerely apologize. AMD just reported earnings last week, and revenues came in at $100 billion for the quarter, which is up 70% year over year, while data center revenue grew 20%. Most of that revenue comes from data center CPUs and not GPUs, and their CPU sales are growing a lot faster because they are becoming the backbone of the agentic era. Meta Platforms recently committed to 2 gigawatts of AMD Instinct GPUs, with e-gigawatt for fully customized Mi Wuxi built exclusively for Meta's workloads. That is roughly the size of all the AI compute on Earth combined outside of the big 3 cloud providers, and Meta just committed all of that to AMD. This is a huge win for AMD, but it comes at a huge cost that investors need to know about before they FOMO into the stock at these levels. AMD gave Meta a warrant, which is the right to buy roughly 10% of the entire company at 1 penny per share. If the stock hits $19, Since AMD already trades over $100 it is already 70% of the way there, and Meta could get almost $100 billion in stock for essentially nothing. AMD has the same deal with OpenAI. So the moment the stock touches $19 per share, you take 80% off the top for dilution. That is the real cost of competing in Nvidia's market, and it means your shares might not be worth as much as the headline price suggests in the long run. There is something else on the market you need to know about, and that is your private data being collected by hundreds of online data brokers for profit. I have been using Delete Me for over years now to remove my personal information from these brokers, and they have reviewed over 10 listings for me. If you care about your family's privacy, you can get 80% off with my code symbol RSHU, because protecting your data is just as important as protecting your capital. Lisa Su said the data center CPU market will nearly triple in size by 2026. Each is a compound annual growth rate of 10% or 3 times faster than the index. So even with the 80% dilution coming up, the future for AMD is looking bright as long as they can keep up with the demand from the giants. Intel is also in a unique position because for years everyone said they needed a huge customer to prove they could still build chips at scale. Everything changed in April when Intel landed 3 huge customers, including Terafab in Austin, where Tesla and SpaceX and ZAI are using their technology. Intel also signed a multi-year deal with Google, and there are reports that Apple is in early talks with Intel about manufacturing chips in the United States. Apple coming back to Intel would be one of the biggest comebacks in market history after they switched to their own ME chips years ago. Intel reported earnings at $9 billion, which is up 10%, and the stock jumped 6% the next day, marking their best day since the dot-com era. Today, they are the only American-owned and operated factory that can build some of the world's most advanced chips, and they finally have the customers to prove it. But the battleground for AI CPUs just got a lot bigger, because ARM just launched the AGI CPU, which is the first chip they have ever designed and sold themselves. The specs are serious with 9 cores per chip and 9 chips per rack, and the math shows it is much more powerful than NVIDIA's Vera in certain workloads. You only need 10 ARM AGI CPUs to support 9 Rubin GPUs, which is 60% better performance than what NVIDIA is offering right now. ARM's new CPU has roughly double the performance per watt versus Intel and AMD, and they say it can save $1 billion in construction costs per gigawatt. Meta just committed to 2 gigawatts of infrastructure, and if they used ARM instead of AMD, they would have saved $1 billion on the project alone. Early demand for this chip is through the roof, and ARM expects to sell over $1 billion worth of these CPUs in the first year alone. ARM is expecting this chip to quadruple their annual revenue over the next years. So they did not just enter the battleground, they dropped a tactical nuke on it. The stock dropped 10% after earnings because supply chain issues are stopping them from growing even faster, but the smart money knows demand is not the problem. If you think demand for AI infrastructure is insane, there is one more bombshell regarding a Miami startup called Subquadratic and their new model. They claim their model is 17 times cheaper to run, which means work that costs down $10 could be done for the price of a cup of coffee. If this turns out to be real, every piece of the AI revolution becomes even more valuable, including all the CPUs I made the mistake of ignoring. When the cost of compute drops, demand explodes. Because every dollar goes further, and people find more ways to use the technology in their daily lives. Cheaper smartphones did not mean people used less data. It meant more people and more apps, and more data centers had to be built to handle the load. Warren Buffett is sitting on record levels of cash for a reason, and the question of where that money goes is becoming clearer every single day. The best investment you can make is in you and your ability to remain calm, while everyone else is gambling with their future in a church with a casino attached. Complexity is just a status signal for people who want to feel smart but stay poor, and I prefer to stay lazy and stay focused on the simple truth. If you cannot explain your strategy to a Sharajanir, old child, you are just gambling, and I have no interest in gambling with my Yawurin leaning dollars and assets. The market will always provide opportunities for those who are patient and disciplined and who do not feel the need to chase every shiny object. I am going to finish my coffee now and watch the sunset while the rest of the world stresses over the next E% move in the stock price. Stay clear and stay focused, and remember that freedom is the only real wealth that matters in this life or any other. The rotation is real and the players are changing, but the principles of the game remain exactly the same as they were 100 years ago. I will be here on my balcony watching it all unfold. And I hope you will be there too, with a clear mind and a solid plan for your future. The end of the story is always the same for the impatient, and the end of the story is always the same for the disciplined. So choose your side. Thank you for watching and for being part of this journey toward true financial independence and intellectual clarity in a chaotic world. Everything is a distraction if it does not lead you closer to your goals, So ignore the noise and focus on the signals that actually matter. I am signing off now, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video where we will uncover more of the brutal truths of the financial world. Take care of your capital and it will take care of you. And never forget that the most powerful force in the universe is compound interest and patience. The lights of the city are coming on and the air is getting cool, and I am exactly where I need to be, and I hope you are too. Believe in the process and trust the math, and stay away from the hype that is designed to separate you from your hard-earned money. The future belongs to the lazy and the smart and the disciplined, and I am proud to be all three, and I hope you are becoming the same. Goodbye for now, and may your portfolio be as boring as a Sunday afternoon and as profitable as a monopoly in a growing town. Keep your head up and your strategy simple and your coffee hot, and I will see you on the flip side of the next market cycle. The silence of the evening is the best sound in the world when your assets are working for you while you do absolutely nothing at all. Stay wealthy and stay free.